Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you joining us today on this cloudy, rainy day. The Vols are about to start fall camp. We'll cover that. There's fallout and issues from SEC expansion. We'll cover that. And there's even a little bit of Tennessee basketball to discuss. We'll cover that too. Let's get into it. Our first segment of today's program is brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. If you have an East Tennessee problem, you need an East Tennessee solution. That's what you get from the Garza Law Firm, a team of trained, proven attorneys based right here, led by a Knoxville attorney, not some out-of-towner who's just running ads here. It's important to get a local attorney. The Garza Law Firm offers that. That's what they do, and they do it well. GarzaLaw.com to learn more about Marcos Garza and his team. Check it out today. All right, here's who I want you to check out today on the show. We have, this is my longest running crew when we do the rotations every week, but these guys have all been here since year one, which, by the way, I'll mention this, in about a month we start our 19th football season, which is crazy.
I was a child.
Yeah. Bob Hodge, longtime sports writer. Bob, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Jimmy Himes from WNML AM and FM. Folks can hear him Monday through Friday, 3 until 7 on Sports Talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Cavaleris, longtime sports writer down there. Chuck, people can find him on the street, sandwich boards, megaphones, anywhere, and at the Chucky C Note Casino, of course. All right.
Of course.
Fall camp starts this week. And I'm having to say Tennessee. Fall camp starts for Tennessee. I need to say Tennessee. I can't just say UT anymore with Texas now in the league. Got to be careful. But Tennessee starts their fall camp. On top of all the other turnover this offseason, Austin Pope and Riley Locklear this week announced that they would be stepping away from the football team as well due to years of injuries and other reasons. So put two more on the throw another couple of shrimp on the Barbie in terms of who's gone. All that said, let's start with just a very big picture question regarding fall camp. And that is, what is the one must? Is this as obvious as I think? What is the #1 must for this football program during fall camp?
I think it's finding a quarterback. I mean, there are other things that they need to do, but they got to find somebody that's going to be the trigger man in this offense. And I do think this offense has a chance to be productive. But if you don't have the right guy that understands it, that can run the system, that's accurate with it, that can run a hurry-up offense, you got a problem. So I'm going to say identifying a quarterback.
Yeah, and you got to whittle that down some.
Well, that's
I know. And I'm still trying to figure out why it's called fall camp instead of summer camp.
Right.
I've always wondered about that. My number
Well, it
one
used
thing,
to start in fall. Now we back it all the way to August.
My #1 thing is to stay healthy. I mean, this team already has such limited depth, and if I'm talking about a group, I think it's obvious to say linebackers. But I wonder how you're going to be able to have some practices and still stay healthy. So that would be my #1 thing, and then quarterback, obviously, and then who's going to be playing linebacker.
Well, that's 3. So you just went all over the board and you jumped ahead. Okay. Before the show, we actually run through, here's what we're doing in this segment. And it's like, no. All right, Bob, what is your #1 must for this?
I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction. I think the coaches have to coach. I think they have to teach.
Yeah.
I think they have to get their players up to speed. And it's not going to be as easy as it is at a place where, okay, we've got a set roster, we've got a set depth chart. You're going to have to go all the way through. And so I think the coaching is the #1 must for this year.
That's a good take, because not only have you had the wild turnover, but you're bringing in new systems everywhere. So
Yeah.
there is no institutional knowledge that's being carried over.
I mean, you've got 4 weeks to try to get these guys up to be able to play football games. And so I say that especially after coming off how poor the previous staff seemed to be at these things. The previous staff didn't seem to coach their guys up, teach their system very well. And so I'm going to go with coaching.
Well, to that point, you had 3 years to teach the defense, right?
Right.
And they
Yeah.
were still having busts. So now
Exactly.
you've got
Exactly.
a very short period of time to make sure everybody knows what they're doing on defense.
And you don't have a ton of veterans that you can just rely on. I mean, that's another thing. You've got some of your key players this year going to be guys you just brought in from the transfer portal. So I know everyone says, "Oh, well, we got this transfer and we got this transfer, and he's going to be an impact, and he's going to be an impact." Okay, but they've got to get up to speed.
Right.
They didn't even get the benefit. Some of these guys didn't even get to spring. So I mean, it is going to be that's a good point. I was going to go with Chuck's. I didn't think anybody would go. I thought it would be 3 quarterbacks. So I think health. Right now for me, that's the key to this season. You are so thin that I just don't see how you can deal with injuries. You need one of those years, which you never get, where Tennessee is lucky on the injury front. For no other reason than just having bodies toward the back half of this year. So you can't have guys going down right now in August. In terms of, and we already know Chuck's answer, he was going to go linebackers. In terms of, if you don't say quarterback, what position are you going to be watching most closely in these coming weeks?
The answer I've been given since about 2005, offensive line.
Offensive line.
I just think with this offense, and it's so predicated on timing and everybody, Heupel likes to take deep shots. You've got seemingly good receivers. You've got seemingly good running backs. We're going to find out who the quarterback is. So your offense all is going to hinge on how good your offensive line is. And, last year, were they better than they were before? A little bit better. But I actually heard some things on your radio station this week from a former player who was saying he had talked to players over there and the current coaching staff who said these guys just weren't being coached, the offensive line, that they really were having some struggles. I think it was Ramon Foster, by the way. And I think that kind of showed that that's where a big weakness was. So you don't have a lot of depth. You got to stay healthy, like you said. So offensive line.
The amazing thing about it, I don't want to get into relitigating the Jeremy Pruitt era, but the whole idea was this super staff, these fantastic coaches that all had championship rings. They'd all been in the South. But we asked the question, and some people got upset because I got the emails to prove it. Are you building the staff too much with an eye on recruiting and not coaching? In hindsight, that's what that sounds like. If you're not coaching them, then what are these guys getting paid to do?
It sounded to me like they got to the NFL because they were talented.
Yeah,
not because they were
exactly.
extremely well coached.
Exactly. That's somebody that just believes in Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's will figure it out for themselves. Jimmy, what position are you looking at outside quarterback?
It's linebacker. I think that's, to me, I can't remember seeing a good or even a decent defense that didn't have decent or good linebackers. Yeah. And I think that's a huge concern for Tennessee. They got a linebacker at Alabama, they got one at Michigan State, but they don't have them on campus where they need them. And so I think that's going to be a big challenge for them. And I'll be curious to see what they do with some of them. Will they take an outside linebacker and move them to defensive end? How they're going to utilize these people, but the linebacker position to me is a huge concern, and I'm going to watch that closely to see how they utilize their personnel.
Jimmy, Chuck, you sticking with linebacker?
Yeah, I think you have to. And at Bob's point on the offensive line, let's not forget, if you're going to be playing so much faster and quicker and more snaps, you better know what you're doing. And in some of these hot days, boy, conditioning is really going to be a factor for these guys to stay at top form all the way through the game, or when the whole time they're on the field.
I also think with the offensive line that if you run at this pace, you can kind of mask some of their weaknesses, because if you're in pretty good shape, maybe you can wear down the defense a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you maybe look better than you really are because they're tired.
Oh, I think, and clearly that has been the mark of his offenses so far. I mean, he's never had 5 stars that he's really worked with at Missouri or UCF, but he's put up fantastic numbers. So yeah, I think that the system does amplify a player's abilities and make them look a little better than they are. Yeah. All right. When we come back, let's talk about the quarterback situation. How quickly must, in case you've heard this before, how quickly must Heupel whittle things down? And then also, does he already have his guys? He already whittled it down in his mind based on what he said at media days. We'll discuss. Come on back on the Sports Source.